Welcome back.
Welcome back.
It's recap time, tea party time.
I've recovered slightly.
No, you haven't.
I've recovered a little bit.
You have had no time to recover.
About 30 seconds. It's enough.
Man.
Fucking hell.
What an episode.
Still holds up to what I remember.
I still kind of prefer episode 4.
I can't agree, but that's personal opinion, of course. That's your truth.
I think this episode has definitely debunked episode 2 for me, though.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because the whole thing is I think that episode 2 was my favorite written episode, but I didn't connect very strongly to it.
Yeah.
Whereas I connected very strongly to episode 4.
Yeah.
And then episode 5 is kind of the same with episode 2. I didn't connect to it a super bunch. I probably went into it a bit too analytically again. But
it happens.
It definitely felt absurdly well written.
Yeah.
It probably, if episode 3, as it is now, had been part of Sure, I probably would have liked it way more than I did.
Oh, you mean if, Ryukishi go his original plan of, doing... well, I guess he did other stuff.
I feel like...
I don't know.
It's more like a lot of the stuff that they give away in episode 3.
Yep.
I will admit, I definitely needed the help to an extent, but I feel like
I feel like approaching the tale with love, it was definitely something that you kind of scoffed at, even in the beginning of episode 4, where Okanogi, Best Boy, is like, hey Angie, you should try looking at Ava with love, and you off camera were like, what do you mean? Ava's like a real bitch, which she is.
I mean, I was more joking about her reaction, her interaction with George, because that's kind of been a bit of a running gag, where
right.
My first impression of her was her basically just being a bitch to her son.
Yeah, but yeah, this episode, I don't think I'm cheating or anything if I just talked about this. It's very much about showing love to things, talking about how the Noxus Commandments, which is something that we should talk about, but trying to apply these rules and trying to only focus on the red truth the way that Erica did. All of these different methods that we're being shown are applied without love by Erica in particular. And you need love. And especially, this is one of the things that really made me want to talk about it with you, because you and me, we do a lot of role-playing, tabletopping stuff. This might sound like a weird tangent, but when they had that conversation about how you have a relationship between a reader and a writer, and you need to trust the other person in order to have a good time, I applied that to my approach to tabletop gaming, because basically you're playing a game kind of against the game master in some ways, but if you treat it like that, it's gonna be competitive and it's gonna be fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, this message of entering a social contract with someone and trusting them and playing in good faith and all that sort of thing is so important. It's one of the biggest reasons why I tell people not to look up any answers or look up anything relating to this game, because, no supernatural advice means, all that sort of stuff. Which,
Google definitely is supernatural.
Yeah, it definitely is. But you're not supposed to try and use external knowledge. Although, of course, every individual who comes to try and solve this story will have their own knowledge. Everyone's different. Not everyone is the same. It's why some people will be very much on top of the mystery and some people will not at all, because they have more or less experience.
It took me a while to come around to it, and I read a few short stories, and I read a couple of
you listen to me rant to you about Nox and how great she is, basically.
And it definitely solidified my approach to this game. Because I feel like going back through episode 3 editing right now, you can definitely tell that episode 3 is where I'm starting to be just oh, okay, mystery.
Another anime scene, yeah.
Yeah, it's I definitely still missed a lot of the point of the story in episode 3, but I was definitely starting to wrap my head around a lot of what was going on, and it's good to see that what I thought of then is kind of holding up as we go through.
It's good to see how you've evolved, I think.
I think, interestingly enough, I cannot think of many predictions that I've made that have been outright falsified thus far, which is interesting to me.
I don't know, you seem to be generally on top of things.
Yeah, and we can go back into the discussion for the however manyth time about, where did Ryukishi intend us to be at this point in the story, but...
Wherever.
There were, literally lines there that were you gotta expect readers to be at different points.
Yep, absolutely. Battler's line of hey, when the red truth came along, this is how I felt, and then I really started to try and solve it.
Basically what I wrote in the comments.
That's basically what you said.
Yeah.
Which I was fucking beaming when you said that. But yeah, that entire conversation between Vigilia and Delanor and Battler is so important to this entire mystery. it's another one of the fucking scenes that is why AP5 is my favorite, because it took everything that I've been thinking about, like how Battler has to trust Beatrice rather than trying to fight her, which is, we can actually talk about Angie for a second, because the big kind of ploy of EP4 is that Burn and Lambda are going to make Angie die behind Battler, so that will motivate him to want to kill Beatrice and not trust her.
Yeah.
That is straight up what is happening in that scene. I don't know if you picked up on it, but that was one of the things that when I played through, I was like, these witches are the worst. Like, they're taking what little trusting relationship these two characters have with each other and being like, no, through like social manipulation and using Angie's determination and just ripping that apart, which for me is just fucking horrible. But we've seen what Burn is capable of, because Erica is an extension of her in many ways.
I don't know. I didn't feel that way about episode 4, and thinking back on it, I don't necessarily agree with you.
You don't?
Perhaps because I'm still like stuck in my think box of the authorship theory.
Sure.
Where I'm thinking of it more from the perspective of like, why did the author of episode 4 write Angie into the story?
Sure.
And it almost seems like, whilst you might be correct that the characters in the moment are doing that, it's almost as though the characters are representing the opposite of what Angie's actually in the story for.
Yeah.
Angie's meant to show you why love is the important thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And Burn and Lambda are more there to be the contradiction, to show you why it's bad to not do it that way.
They twist it, right? They twist Angie's purpose from, I'm going to show you why it's important to be connected to these characters and why, like, Maria's diary is important and why these stories are important and why the characters are important, and then Burn and Lambda take it and they twist it.
Yeah.
And that's obviously like Burn's goal from the beginning, bringing Angie in, something to that effect. But you're absolutely right, like in terms of, because as once again, another conversation this episode, as I believe it was Vigilia said, these witches can only be let in if Beato lets them. Everything in this story is here because the author or the narrator lets them.
Yeah.
Even when it seems like Beato is being thrashed about by these witches, it's all intentional. Which brings me, I suppose, to that final moment where Beato crumbles into dust. Very strange that Beato would let that happen? Question mark?
I mean, listen, we're getting back into like the whole authorship theory.
Okay.
But to me, everything that Beato and Battler did like together off the game board in this episode was all very focused on like what seems to be Beato's death outside the story to me, like what actually happened in truth.
Sure.
Because like, I mean, you can read the post and I'll link it in the description again, but like there's so much allusion to the sea in this, and then like Beato has a shackle on her leg and she's in like a catatonic state, and Battler's like, you know, why did you give up before I realized the truth? And then there's also that scene where it was the one in the last episode or the one before, I was like, I'm tapping my temple now. It's because that was very clearly meant to be when Battler's like, fuck, I forget the actual line that it was.
Play it back. Go back through the tapes, find it.
It was the one where Battler was like, I'm pretty sure it was the one where it was 2 lines. It was Battler said, it's almost like, you know, having your love taken away from you and having them never return. Immediately followed by, that's what happened to me with my first girlfriend. Which just immediately screamed to me, because I'm sticking with my culprit theory, George and Shannon.
Right.
I think that's what that whole scene was like pointing to. And it's really interesting that, you know, the implication is that, I guess we'll stick with the name Sayer now. Yep. Because I feel like that's relatively well established.
Yep, I think that's a good name to pick.
That like, her whole motivation was to try and like, you know, show Battler what he'd done to her by leaving for these 6 years. Combined with all of the apparent, absolutely horrible fucking things that have happened to Sayer. Yeah. Because, like, theoretically, that Sayer would be the man from 19 years ago.
What do you think's going on with that baby? Do you have a timeline in your head of what's going on? I know you've done some speculating in your off time.
So...
What do you think's happening?
I think the main thing was that in the scene where they first introduced the topic of Kinzo giving the baby to Natsui, I was like, why would Kinzo have a baby?
Yeah, it's a great question.
And I was like, oh god, it might be Kinzo's baby.
Yeah.
Who would Kinzo have a baby with? Oh god, the woman he loved. But that woman's way too young, and he met Beatrice in the war. Oh god.
Yeah.
Like, it's like one of those things where like there's a lot of story concepts in this book which, like, if it was a Western author in like this day and age, I'd be like, that wouldn't happen. No one would write that. That's too horrific.
Look, I wouldn't put it past Ryukishi.
Yeah, basically, it's like the idea that Kinzo had a child, had sex with a child, had another child, and then tried to give that child to Natsui is like so fucking wacky. But at the same time, it's like just foreshadowed and just within the scope of the story enough that I'm like, that might be the truth.
Yeah. I like that you're rejecting, like, you know, traps, but not rejecting the idea that Kinzo has an incest baby. I don't, you know.
It's like, I mean...
I think that that's very interesting. I'm not saying that I'm not confirming or denying anything. I just find it interesting that you're like, these things are so far outside of the scope of the mystery genre, but you're like, that is something that could have happened.
But it's been foreshadowed.
Has it?
Traps have not been foreshadowed.
It requires foreshadowing, I see.
We've had the whole thing where Kinzo's like, oh, in episode 2, he's like, ah, yes, I met Beatrice after the war. And like, you know, supposedly they had this relationship before they moved to the island, right? And then Rosa meets a young Beatrice who doesn't know who she is, and who we also see in another scene being like a guide to Kinzo.
Say, when we... I don't want to say... I just want to say you should read over that scene a couple more times when Beatrice is talking about herself and how...
I mean,
what's going on?
If you know what it is, just throw it out on the table.
I'm not going to. I'm just going to encourage you to read over that scene, but I'm sure we will when you get to editing it. It'll be interesting to like read over.
And yeah, so we have like young Beatrice in the 40s, young Beatrice in the 60s, and young Beatrice in the 20s.
Yep.
Oh, in the 80s rather. It's like it just lines up enough that I'm like, oh god, Ryukishi, please no, don't make this be a thing.
Yep. Yep.
Because the other thing is like going back to like the whole foreshadowing thing and kind of like the Natsui's big fucking rifle Chekhov's gun thing.
Yep.
It's like, why would we be shown those things if they didn't play into the story somehow?
I told you, everything has a meaning.
Because I mean, trust me, I knew. I just didn't know what they meant.
It's okay.
It's like, why do we need to know about 3 different Beatrices that have supposedly existed?
Yeah. One of which was created from a homunculus, I believe.
Something like that, which, considering my understanding of a homunculus is a small clay creature.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Which is like...
brewed in a test tube, apparently.
Yeah, it's like... ugh. It as I say, it's like, it provides just enough foundation that I'm like, this might be the truth. The other things that I've considered is like looking as like how Battler said, it's like, you know, maybe I'm the child from 19 years ago, but it's like, yes, Battler, but you're also a ripped 20-year-old dude who fucking doesn't seem to have anything wrong with him.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you could make a theory, but it'll probably involve a lot of amnesia, right?
It definitely would, and I mean, that's already part of the foundation of my authorship theory, so it's not like super far-fetched.
Right.
It's more the part of being thrown off a cliff and identified as being dead that leads me to believe that it probably would leave some scarring.
Sure.
Which, like...
I mean, we haven't seen any visual scarring in any of the characters.
It's true.
So...
it's true.
I'm just saying. I'm not here to throw you under the bus. I'm just pointing out.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
And then, what else?
Even Kinzo, that beautiful boy.
What a beautiful boy.
Beautiful face.
I'm trying to think of what other things I want to bring up before we get into, like...
I mean, I have a thing that I want to bring up. I'm trying to think of how to approach it.
Sure.
Because for your theory to work, and I mean, they pretty much spelled it out, Erica's the detective, but we've been seeing things from Battler's perspective. And, you know, we're pretty much shown that even though he saw the corpses, they weren't actually corpses, all that, yada, yada, yada. Now, if Erica is the detective, and Battler's perspective doesn't count for shit, we have not had, I think, a single scene with Erica as the perspective. So, technically speaking, nothing of this entire episode is trustworthy except for the Red Truth. Because we have not had a single objective standpoint that can say this is like Battler's the detective, and we don't see anything from Erica. There is nothing we can trust except for the red. How do you feel about that?
I think it's completely fine.
Okay.
We nailed down ages back that like the magic scenes, even though they are unreliable, still show some aspect of the truth. And Vigilia said at the end of this thing, was it Vigilia or was it Nox? I forget.
One of the two. They're both pretty cool.
But basically said like you have to wonder why they're showing you that magic.
Yeah.
If it doesn't contain some element of truth.
Yeah. Battler even works it out, which is pretty cool. He's like, yeah, so we need to spin the chessboard, surprise, surprise, and say that, okay, rather than saying because there's magic in it, this isn't a mystery, we say it is a mystery, therefore if there's magic, then this scene is unreliable, right?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
And that's like the whole thing with the letter.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Which is very interesting. It's one thing that kind of killed me about this episode is that Hideyoshi's death and the letter just didn't even factor into the court at all.
No.
Which is very interesting to me.
It's very much an unfinished game, which is very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so
let's go into this. I think we've already looked.
I was gonna say we don't really need to go through the Twilight, so we kind of just did that, unless you have anything to add. Ooh, damn! Look at those dead people. But yeah, I mean, first Twilight. Do you subscribe to Battler's theory that they were killed afterwards?
Absolutely.
And,
I wrote about it before Battler threw it in the court.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
I think as I said a few episodes ago, the putting the cloth, like the bed sheets over their body or whatever, was like the fucking giveaway. And the funny thing is Byrne gives the exact red truth that Battler ends up claiming to be the truth.
Yeah.
And I find that very interesting that Ryukishi's just like, here's the answer.
Yeah.
And doesn't tell you.
I mean, this is true, right?
Yeah.
It's the fucking scattering arcs. It's the breakdown arcs. We're learning answers.
Yeah, I think we've looked at this, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we've read them all, I'm sure.
I do like that you can actually see Dlana's massive fucking golden fist
so
in
good.
this.
They're pretty cool.
Sure we've looked over these.
Yeah, we've read them, I'm sure.
Can I execute anyone here?
No, I don't think so. Is the other Chiesa sister there? I wonder. It's pretty annoying that it doesn't just click through them.
I know.
You have to like, she was there. She is.
There
Can you
we
resurrect her? See if there's a new text at all.
No.
No, it's the
Same one.
That's okay. Oh, why'd you have to go and kill her? No.
Consistency.
All right, let's read through these tips.
This is actually the first game that we've not had a full list.
No, it's not full at all. Let's read. We've read Eyes on Jungfrau.
Yeah, we've spoke about Right, which I'll bring up again in a bit.
The red key and the blue key we haven't read. The red key, a weapon for emergencies used by official inquisitors of heresy, belonging to the Eisen Jungfrau, Delano's primary weapon. Unlike a normal weapon, whose purpose is to cause physical damage, this special tool is known as a conceptual weapon, and it is used to deny the existence of concepts. Oh god. Regardless of whether the attack is physical, mental, or conceptual, it is impossible to use any defensive concepts such as physical barriers, mental quarantine, or conceptual inheritance to defend against this weapon. It's a weird word. Because the concepts themselves are denied, even the concept of resisting an attack does not exist, and it is impossible for the target to endure regardless of their stamina. Furthermore, all supernatural methods of buying time, such as teleportation, time reversal, revivals, and inheritance, are impossible, because denials of concepts conform to verdict procedures dictated by the Great Court. All future concepts that disobey them will be denied automatically. In addition, when the red key operates within a complete barrier, all concepts of evasion cannot be successful. Defense is impossible, evasion is impossible, buying time is impossible. This ultimate conceptual weapon is the embodiment of these three impossibilities. A strict investigation by the Great Court of Heaven is required for the use of the red key. Because of this, the very act of dispatching Delano, who arms herself with it, is equivalent to a death sentence. In this world, Senator Lambda Delta has placed restriction on his use of power. This is also I know. I was gonna say, out of all of that, the thing that jumps out at me, she's a fucking senator, and so is Byrne. They're senators.
So brilliant.
They're senators. Why? Who gave these people this power?
Let's go.
You want to take this one?
Sure. The primary weapon used by the official Inquisition of heresy belonging to Eisen Jungfrau. Like the red key, it is a conceptual weapon, but instead of denying the existence of concepts, it is instead used to create self-doubt and force others to deny themselves. For this reason, it is called the blue key of reflection in contrast with the red key of judgment. Unlike the red key, it is possible to evade and defend against it. However, while the red key has severe restrictions regarding how it can be used, the blue key can be wielded with great ease and manipulated at will in all situations. Furthermore, because the shape of conceptual weapons are themselves purely conceptual, the outward appearance differs depending on the Inquisitor using them. In Delana's case, they appear as a long sword and a short sword, but sometimes use them in the form of spears or guns, while others make them take shape as phenomena such as magic or miracles. The red and blue charms used by Gertrude and Cornelia are yet another shape taken by these keys.
She's literally the Green Lantern, is what we're being told. The good one, the good Green Lantern.
I don't know. I feel like it's fuck. What's the
Basically, the Green Lantern.
Kingdom Hearts is the one with the keyblades.
Oh yeah, with the different keyblades. It's true. She's wielding keys.
Yeah, and then we've also looked over this a bit.
That's right. We don't have to read through all of it.
But Noxus 10, I wanted to bring up jolly old Van Dyne.
Why would you like to talk about Van Dyne?
Let me grab up the list.
Sure. You want to go through the rules?
I absolutely do.
There's 20 of them. Damn, that's commitment.
There's 20 of them plus notes.
True.
And one of the notes is the main problem that I have.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was the one that I mentioned earlier. The butler. Was it
The butler.
No.
It cannot be the butler.
Oh no! It was the fantastic one for episode 3.
No.
We'll get into it. So, the reader must have equal opportunity with the detective for solving mysteries. All clues must be stated and described. That's fine.
Okay.
No willful tricks.
Number 1.
No willful tricks or deceptions may be played on the reader other than those played legitimately by the criminal and the detective himself.
Okay.
I feel like we've just fucking smashed that out the gate with the very existence of magic.
Yep, that's fine.
Even though there's still like room to escape it, it's still very much like just willful trick and deception. There must be no love interest in the story. To introduce armor is to clutter up a purely intellectual experience with irrelevant sentiment.
Yep, that's a fun one. Good luck getting around that rule in this story.
The business in hand is to bring a criminal to the bar of justice, not to bring a lovelorn couple to the hymnal altar. So fucking funny.
It's pretty great. Ryukishi fucking knows. He knows this shit.
The detective himself or one of the official investigators should never turn out to be the culprit. This is bold trickery. I feel like we're kind of still within that one, but we've also had Battler turn out to be an accomplice, which is interesting. The culprit must be determined by logical deductions, not by accident, coincidence, or unmotivated confession. I feel like we're pretty well on par with that, except for the gold truth, but I mean, that's a whole thing.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about that in a bit too.
The detective novel must have a detective in it.
Good.
Which means that unfortunately episodes 1 to 4 are not detective novels. Silly Battler. There must be a corpse in a detective novel, and the deader the corpse, the better.
The deader the corpse, the better.
I love that line.
That's terrifying.
No lesser crime than murder will suffice.
Wow.
100 pages is far too much Potter for a crime other than murder. It's so quintessentially like old school writing.
Yeah, I am not a fan of this. Holy shit.
It's just brilliant.
Like, we thought the Nox rules were bad. This is terrifying.
Yeah, the whole thing was...
Approach it with love, my dudes.
The whole thing is that Nox... Van Dyne, from the few minutes of Google searching that I did to find this, was one of the like most popular detective fiction writers at the time.
Right.
So he wrote these rules from the perspective of, this is what I use to make people enjoy my stories.
Sure.
Not saying like, this is the correct way to do things. He's just saying like, this is how I do things.
Sure.
So they're still very, you know, posh and proper and...
Oh yeah,
but
the deader the better.
But they're not like, if you do this, you're a bad author. Except the last ones. The last ones do say that, but we'll get to that. The problem must be solved by purely naturalistic means. That's fine. There must be but one detective. A gang of detectives. He brings up a gang of detectives and says...
What if you had a gang of detectives, though? That would be amazing.
It'd be pretty hilarious.
Sorry, it's all jumping over each other, trying to get to the clues. That'd be great.
Basically, it's the whole point. It's kind of like the equivalent of Nox's Watson thing at like the notes of his 10 Commandments.
Yep.
Where it's basically saying if you have more than one person who is the detective, no one knows who their Watson character is and who they can trust as their co-deductor.
It's too difficult to figure out, guys.
The culprit must be as a person who's more or less played a prominent part of the story. Yeah, that's fine. Number 11, servants such as butlers, footmen, valets, gamekeepers, cooks, and the like must not be chosen by the author as the culprit.
And you've straight up chosen...
This is begging a noble question. It is too easy a solution. It is unsatisfactory and makes the reader feel like their time has been wasted. I don't know. I don't feel like my time has been wasted.
I know.
It's certainly interesting to consider. I feel like because we've already broken some of them, I'm not too concerned about the story sticking to these.
Yeah, I know. It's a great question.
But you could also make the claim that it could still fit the rule if we're claiming that the culprit was actually a child of the family.
Yeah.
And like the butler is the guys that they've taken on to get back into the family.
Sure.
So it's a bit of a stretch of the rule, but you could maybe make it work. There must be one culprit no matter how many murders are committed. I think we've kind of nailed down a theory that works with that. We've definitely had more than one.
Well, except for an EP3 where it's almost certainly two culprits.
That's true, actually. But the kind of like consistent culprit across Umineko seems to be consistent in the theories that we've put together. Secret societies have no place in a detective story. Screw
Like the witch hunters
Jungfrau.
and Eisenjungfrau.
Yeah, screw the witch
whatever.
hunters. Screw Mariage Sorcière.
Get him out of here.
I think the point is more that it can't be like the motive of
I know.
some society.
It can't be like, it was the Illuminati and that explains everything.
Yeah.
Oh, what a shocker.
The means of
bullshit.
murder and detecting it must be rational and scientific. That's fine. The truth of the problem must at all times be apparent, provided the reader is shrewd enough to see it. By this I mean, if the reader, after learning the explanation for the crime, should reread the book, he would see that the solution had, in a sense, been staring him in the face, that all the clues really pointed at the culprit, and that if he had been as clever as a detective, he could have solved the mystery himself without going on to the final chapter.
That's a fun one. If only you had been as clever as Battler.
I mean,
I find that to be a very interesting role.
unless I'm proven wrong, I'm pretty sure I beat him there. This is my favorite one.
Yeah.
A detective novel should contain no long descriptive passages, no literary dallying with side issues, no subtly worded out character analyses, no atmospheric preoccupations.
Oh dear.
Such matters have no vital place in a record of crime and deduction.
I would be very interested to see someone try and claim, like, see how they can make Umineko fit with all of the Van Dyne rules, if that's even possible. That would be a really fun little project.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, it's more saying, like, don't tell side stories.
Yeah, it's like, don't screw around with bullshit. It's,
Yeah, you could technically say that Umineko does still follow this, because so far it seems like all of the side scenes we've shown have been relevant.
in one way or another. Yeah.
But it's still like, the main one that kills me is the no atmospheric preoccupations.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Ryukishi's a mad genius. Let him do what he wants.
A professional criminal must never be shouldered with guilt of the crime. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Basically, it's saying that you can't have, like, the mafioso dude who everyone knows is the mafioso be the criminal.
No Chinaman must figure in the story.
Pretty much.
What are you up to? What number?
18.
Okay.
A crime in a detective story must never turn out to be accident or suicide. Like, I feel like it's a pretty obvious
suicide is required, but in your theory, like for your theory, but it's only the culprit that commits suicide, I believe.
Well, I think the point is more that the core murder can't be suicide.
Right.
It can't
the
be
corpse
like,
is discovered can't be a suicide.
yeah,
basically.
it can't be like, get to the end of the novel and be like, well, none of you are guilty.
It was no one the entire time.
I guess unless you maybe did like a Huckleberry Finn Tom Sawyer thing where you show up to your own funeral.
Yep.
That would be fun.
Definitely.
The motives for all crimes in the detective stories should be personal. International plotting and war politics, this is kind of the Chinaman one again.
Sure. Personal is good, love is bad.
And
sure.
Number 20, I herewith list a few of devices which no self-respecting detective story writer will now avail himself of.
I hope that all of them are in this story.
The first one is determining the identity of the culprit by comparing the butt of a cigarette left at the crime scene with the brand of smoked by a suspect. Episode 3.
Episode 3.
Fuck you, Van Dyne.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, then there's the bogus spiritualistic seance to frighten the culprit into giving himself away. I mean, episode 5 is kind of a bit like that, but Natsui's not the culprit.
It's true.
The dog that does not bark and thereby reveals the fact the intruder is familiar.
No.
I mean, Maria, right?
I guess so. If we call him Maria dog.
I mean, it's the same as the Chinaman. It doesn't literally mean a Chinaman, right?
I'm just saying.
The fact that...
I find it amusing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree it's amusing as well, but I think definitely the whole Maria letter situation is definitely a case of breaking Rule 20E.
Maybe.
Then there's the twins thing again, same as Nox. There's no knockout drops. They're not allowed to factor into this, even though I used them in episode 3.
Okay.
And kind of in episode 4, though that was more of a hypothetical. You cannot commission a murder in a locked room after the police have actually broken in.
Well, no police, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of say that
We can't break that one.
the moving corpses thing is a bit of a stretch, but I do like this one. Sorry, the cipher or code letter which is eventually unraveled by the sleuth. Like, you can't just have them like solve a cipher that gives away the answer.
Sure. What? I guess that makes some sort of sense.
It's basically saying, like, you can't have a piece of paper that has in cipher written on it, this person is the culprit, and the detective just solves the cipher to figure out who the culprit is.
Yeah, it sounds kind of dumb. I mean, honestly, most of the rules in Nox and Van Dyne
I also left out
like,
a word association test for guilt of the culprit, but I mean, largely irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, most of the rules, honestly, like, aren't that complicated. It's just don't be a shitty writer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the truth.
Like even the stuff about foreshadowing, which I push so fucking hard, like if you are reading a story and there is no Chekhov's gun, you know, if aliens just die from the common cold, for example, when there's been no mention of the cold the entire story, that's a load of horseshit. As much as I love that novel. But like...
Wait, what novel?
What? It would be the one with the aliens who die from the cold. Have you not read that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's somewhere the same guy who did The Invisible Man and The Time Machine. It's funny that I can't remember the name of the actual book that I'm thinking about. Point is, though, something about War of the Worlds. That's the one.
Jesus Christ. You forgot about War of the Worlds.
So did you.
I've not read it. I've not read it.
It's a good book. My point is that, like, in any self-respecting story, there should be foreshadowing for what's gonna happen. You know, you should have characters that are established and then developed. You should have rules that are laid out for the world that you're in. Like, these rules are not that crazy, honestly. They're just, you know, specifically written for the genre. I think that, like, the way that they talk about these rules is like, it's a crutch so that you know that you can solve the story. This isn't just a load of bullshit. I think that that's a really good way of approaching it. I very much agree with the sentiment that's present in this story. I don't think that they're like something to be feared. I don't think that like good storytelling is something to be feared, you know. I think that looking at things critically, using the tools that we have is perfectly reasonable, and it's even helpful. Van Dyne, I can either confirm or deny if this story even follows Van Dyne or Nox at all, but it's certainly good that you're giving the rules a look and seeing if you can apply them. I think it's really cool. Have you got anything else you want to bring up about those rules in particular?
Not about the rules in particular. I think Nox's rules is certainly an interesting one because I think that we've definitely followed Nox's rules so far.
Yeah.
The one that trips me up though is Nox's third, the whole definition of a hidden passage.
Yep.
It could be said that a definition of a hidden passage is one that the detective does not find.
Here's the thing. Are there any hidden passages? Are there any hidden passages that you think haven't been revealed to the detective?
That haven't been revealed?
Because here's the thing. Battler is reading these stories. He has, like, anything that isn't revealed to Battler on the game board is still revealed to Battler, like, in Purgatory, right? So there are no hidden passages because they've all been revealed when they're relevant.
I think there might yet be some.
You think so?
I feel relatively confident that there might yet be some, but I don't think they've factored into the story yet.
I agree. This kind of comes back
because in episode 3, Ava did find the hidden passage beneath the island where the gold was, but it wasn't relevant to the mysteries before that. That's the thing that Ryukishi kind of goes with. Like, if it hasn't been foreshadowed, if it's not relevant, it didn't really. And then it wasn't relevant in before. Episode 4, the hidden passage was used again, but it was literally like, "Hey, Battler, we're in a hidden passage on the other side of the island."
Yeah.
And then in episode 5, he finds it.
Yeah. You could arguably make a claim that, like, for example, the epitaph is a mystery that I don't think you can solve it with just the EP1 clues. You kind of have to get more information about the actual island, especially if your theory is correct. You actually have to, like, see the chapel, which isn't in EP1.
Yeah.
Like, that as a mystery. It's not a murder mystery, but it's still a mystery. Like, you can't physically solve that in the first episode. It's impossible. So in that case, that's something that's kind of tweaking the rules a little bit. But then again, one might even argue that episodes 1 to 4 is the early part of this story. For the kind of grander mysteries. I definitely think that you can figure everything out with episodes 1 to 4. I think that you can have some theories that might line up in EP1 or EP2 even, but I don't think it's possible to figure everything out until you've read the first 4 episodes. I think it's very much designed that way. Now we're at EP5.
I think the other thing that's very interesting to me that I've noticed a bit more going through is especially with Leno coming in and being like, it's not permitted for things to be solved with, like, with supernatural evidence or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because that implies that, the supernatural agencies are actually part of, like, the story.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that to us as readers, they're definitely a part of the story.
Yep.
But it implies that in the, like, work of fiction that Battler is trying to understand, they exist for him as well.
Yep. I will say that I definitely am in... there is some debate about that in some ways, in some camps, I feel. There are some people who very firmly believe that the meta aspects are not a part of the like story that's told in the future. I am not so much in that camp, though. I very much believe that the meta aspects are part of the story. But I don't want to get into that too much. That's just my personal
that
truth.
was like the whole foundation of the authorship theory that I wrote up.
Yep.
Was basically like, well, do the magic characters exist in the message bottles that we've been told to exist?
Yep. It's a great question.
And like that was where that entire thing springboarded from. And I'm very much in the camp of, I think that everything that is written here is also written in like the future.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I'm very interested to see if we get any answers on that. I swear, if like episode 6 opens up and it's just like straight in the face of that, I'll be very, very sad boy.
It's a great question. I'm very sad to get to it. Is there anything else we want to go through?
I mean, there's a heap we can go through.
I know. I would love to talk about Erica, but I could literally just talk for hours about
We really could.
Erica, because she's such a great character.
I mean,
as much as I hate her.
let's do it. Let's
Fuck.
talk about Erica, because otherwise we're not going to, right?
I don't even know, like... She's great as a commentary. She's great as a character. I think I want to know more about her.
All of episode 5 is great as commentary.
Yeah.
It's commentary internally on the series. It's great commentary on the genre.
It's commentary on the readers as well.
It is.
Erica is very much a commentary on like there's a line that Sherp is like, some people take their truth that they've reached and beat people over the head with it. Erica, some readers of Umineko.
Right.
Like, that's totally a thing.
And that was the thing, is like, I realized a lot going through this episode, Eric is basically me.
Yeah, dog.
Up until episode 4.
Yes. Sorry, my dude. But
I mean,
it's definitely a thing.
I mean, listen, I can't be the pot calling the kettle black or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
Accusing Erica of being awful.
But yeah, no, totally. You definitely were seeing things without love.
Like, that's the whole reason that I like episode 4 so much, is because it made me care.
Yeah, totally.
If episode 4 had not been in the story, if Angie's part of episode 4 had not been in the story, I would have gotten to episode 5 and be like, man, Eric is doing real good at this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Angie is definitely an interesting character, and I'm glad that you connected with her on some level. So.
Yeah, I still don't fully understand why it is that I connected with Angie so much. I think it definitely comes from the foundation, as I've mentioned, that I wasn't trying to solve Angie.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But
even though you are trying to solve Angie, I feel
I'm definitely trying to solve Angie, but it's more for the sake of my own entertainment than my lack of understanding.
Yeah. I want to know, how do you feel about Beato by now? Has your opinion changed at all? Do you care about her? How do you feel?
How so?
I don't know. I mean, you saw me. I was fucking crying when she died. I don't know. Do you care about her? Did that scene affect you at all?
I don't know. I'm not a person that typically actually, like, emotionally connects to works of media.
Yeah.
Like, still, to date, the only thing that has ever actually made me, like, come to tears in any work of fiction has been at the end of Fellowship of the Ring, when, Aragorn and Boromir are like looking each other in the eyes as Boromir's dying, and he's like, my brother, my captain, my king.
Yeah.
Like, that line just fucking kills me every time.
It's pretty great.
I don't know what it is about that line either, but there's just something, especially...
It's very tragic, but he, like, is redeemed at the end.
I know, it's a
Best
really
boy.
great moment. Like, I understand technically, how it makes me feel and why it makes me feel, but I don't understand why that's the one.
Yeah.
Because I can definitely think of other moments in other works of fiction where I'm like, that's a more convincing character moment.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I mean,
and it's kind of the same with Angie, where it's like, I don't really understand why
I think
Angie...
I think it's partly because maybe you share some character traits with Angie. Maybe you feel like I definitely feel like the way that Angie approaches the tale as well is not the same as Erica. She's not as much of an arsehole, but she definitely approaches it with like, I am going to fight witches. I mean, I do it from a different perspective, but my job is to, like, she's very determined, and she's like, I'm going to win this. I'm going to do it without caring for Beato, and I'm going to support Battler, like all that sort of thing. Whereas I very much empathize with Beatrice. I empathize, it's getting a little bit personal, but I definitely empathize with the way that she acts towards Battler, the way that she kind of puts on a mask sometimes. I very much identify with any character who changes like that. Who are like, this is the way that I'm going to present myself to the world. And it's not necessarily what I'm feeling right now, but it's what I think is best for other people, if that makes any sense. I very much identify with Beatrice as a character and as a person. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much, otherwise I'll just start crying again. I don't want that. But like when Beato finally gives up at the end there and she scatters, it was a very impactful moment for me during my first reading and my second reading, because she's finally given up trying to get through to him. She's given up trying to convince him. She's given up trying to get Battler to understand and to love her. And I don't know, it's just very tragic.
Yeah, it's like if we take the whole theory that Seo is the culprit and is trying to like get Battler to see her again after all of these years apart, where I'm like assuming they used to have this relationship. There's all of these times where Battler's just like, I don't know who you are, and like I don't know what I did wrong, and Beto every time is just like, just fucking kill me, oh my god.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just...
She's such a tragic character to me. And it's very much, it was, when I read through, it was very much my focal point, rather than actually solving the mystery. Like, I hardly figured out any of the mystery in EP5. I basically was waiting for Battler to tell me what happened. It's not that I had given up completely, but I was like, you know what?
It's not what you were focusing on.
No, not at all. I was very much like, what is Erica here for? What is she here to, like, is she supposed to be me? Is she supposed to be me if I'm an asshole? You know?
Supposed to be my damn ass friend?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but like, that's my impression, my experience, my truth even, and I think that it's perfectly valid to have multiple truths existing at the same time in that way. Yeah. But yeah, no, Bitches is great. I love her. She's probably my favorite character ever. I can't think of any other character that tops her.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially for me, as I say, I don't really connect a lot emotionally with a lot of media. It's kind of like, I don't think I'll ever, like, connect with Beardo's story on any level close to you, because it's just not how my brain ticks. But that doesn't mean that I can't, think and understand what it all means and what it would mean to this character. Like,
yeah, definitely.
I think one of my strong suits on reflection of a story, as I've said, is definitely looking at characterization and why things happened, even if I struggled to do it the first time through. And I think definitely in reflection I can understand of what a lot of it means and a lot of the implications. But I guess let's talk about, I want to talk about accomplices, Ben.
Okay, sure.
Because I've already told my theory about this episode where the as we kind of saw at the end, the corpses, the deaths were fake, they were moved away, killed later.
They weren't actually dead,
Hideyoshi's death was faked, and the letter never happened. And I'm trying to think, what was the other mystery you called me on?
I mean the calls, who was making the calls.
Right, yeah, and I said that was likely Battler.
But of course, we got the red truth that Kraus was killed shortly after calling Natsuhi. Or speaking with Natsuhi, I should say.
That's a good point, actually.
So, Kraus was definitely killed shortly after making the call. Do you think that was Battler? Do you think that Battler is actually the culprit of this game?
I don't know.
He's not the detective. It's possible.
Red truth in the fourth game was that Battler is not the culprit. This applies to all games.
Good catch.
Which is an interesting one when we also get to the number of people, because there are no more than 17 people. This applies to all games.
Yep.
And then at the start of episode 5, it's like the number of people is equal to the previous number plus one. But it never says what the previous number was.
That's pretty great.
And it said this applies to all games.
Yep.
But I think what honestly might have happened is the whole Battler thing was more like a vessel to identify Battler as an accomplice.
Sure.
Now, it would make more sense. The reason I thought it was Battler initially is because the phone call was coming from the external line, which meant that it had to be someone off the island.
Sure.
And I'd have to go check, but I believe we'd kind of seen that Shannon and Cannon were still on the island at the time.
Oh, I see.
I might be wrong. I might be mixing up different scenes, because there definitely was a lot of like jumping around in time.
Maybe.
But I mean, just because he was killed soon after the phone call and that Natsui heard him over the phone call doesn't mean that the person on the phone was the one to kill him. I said that like Battler might have been brought into the scheme to try corner Natsui. So he's like, cool, done the phone call, leave the room, and then Kraus gets killed soon after. So I don't think that's a problem.
Why would Battler go along with this?
I mean, I think the obvious one is that all of the parents seem to be, even back to episode 1, all of the adults seem to be completely locked into the idea that Kinzo's dead.
Right.
Like, none of them are convinced, they're all just like, fuck, how do we actually prove it?
Sure.
And I think basically the play of this game was, we need to corner Natsui and have her confess because she's the weaker of Kraus and Natsuhi.
Right.
Which, funnily enough, seems to not actually be the case, considering moon tourism.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Their relationship is super interesting after this episode, but I don't know.
But I feel like Battle was basically told, like, we're just cornering Natsui to get her to admit to this awful thing that she's done with Kraus.
Because we know, I believe it's a red truth, that the pieces on the board, the characters, won't do anything that they wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's within Battler's character to murder.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. That's why, like, because, I mean, he goes to the study with, and, like, basically disproves the whole locked room there. But, like, why would he disprove it if he's trying to corner her? It almost implied a sense of guilt to me. Maybe that he was like, I've fucked up. How do I, like, try almost save Natsui from this?
Maybe.
So I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, much as with the previous episodes, we're kind of like, we don't actually know the truth, but yet I'm still kind of like locking in these theories.
No, I like it. I like the theory. I like that you're taking what the characters want into consideration, and it would fit, I think, if we're dealing with a tale without love, if the entire point is for everyone to, like, just literally just gang up on Nazi to try and, like, make her confess that Kenzo was dead. I think that's very unloving.
And the other thing is that the line right before we go back to the like meta space or whatever is Battler going, oh, it's all useless, like this is all a waste of time.
Yeah.
I would not have been surprised if Battler was like, listen, Erica, you dumb fuck, we framed her.
Right.
Someone else is alive on the island killing people. Like that was in that moment what I kind of expected to be the next thing he would have said.
Yeah.
Except we cut.
Yep.
Which didn't surprise me, but like it definitely would have been the line that I was expecting next, given how I've like scoped this whole story out thus far.
Yeah. It does make you wonder what happens like after the game ends.
I mean, I feel like that applies to all games.
Sure.
I mean, the other thing is that we were told that it is midnight on the second day when, theoretically, in my claims, the island explodes.
Yeah, there's like a bomb or something that...
Yeah, I said it was like this...
Everybody screams.
Yeah, it's like a military base. I actually, in the scene where like all of the names were flashing up on screen and every single one of them was like a layer of glass, I was almost imagining like the explosion tearing through and just one window after another just like popping out.
Cool. Yeah, no, totally.
But the thing I wanted to bring up about accomplices is we are very much getting into the territory about my theory for episode 4 and 5, and also less so but still kind of for episodes 1 to 3, is that there are so many goddamn accomplices.
Yep.
Holy fuck. In like episode 2 I was like, this wouldn't work, that's so many people, but now it's like the thing that I'm hitching my theories on.
Is that everyone is in on it, basically.
Yeah, and I think the thing that like tripped me over the edge on that one was Murder on the Orient Express. I stopped at the I have figured out the culprit line, which Vigilia mentioned.
That's pretty great.
So like I know what happens up to there. But basically the whole idea that like it could just be literally everyone in on it. I was basically like, I think I'm brave enough to try this.
Sure. Yeah, totally. That's great. Yeah. It's definitely a signal to the reader, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that like, I don't know, especially with it being a closed-off island in the middle of a storm, there's less necessity for like there to be any sort of innocence in the tale.
Yeah.
Especially when no one comes back alive, supposedly, except Ava.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much made a point in EP4 that Ava is the only one who knows the truth. Right? Like, what really happened on the island? Do we know? Are any of these stories even, you know?
I don't think we'll actually... I'm starting to both be afraid and also take solace in the fact that we will never actually know the truth of what happened on the island.
That's definitely where I was at the end of EP5. I was like, you know what? If it turns out that we just never know, that would be amazing. That was where I was at EP5.
The only thing that like slightly hinges me on that one is at the end of episode 3 on the rooftop where Burns like, I could find you the truth, but it would be very unhappy and you would hate it. I was almost like, oh no, Kiri and Rudolph are culprits.
Yeah. Sure.
I feel like that's probably the only clue in terms of like actual stitching together the truth of what happened on the island, that we've definitely had, like, that I can pin and say that's the culprit. But otherwise we're kind of left to just pick apart everything else that happened through all of the episodes.
Yeah,
and try
definitely.
to stitch together, like, which ones actually happened and which ones did the characters just learn about and write about after.
Yeah.
At least in the authorship theory.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Battler did on the board. He was like, let me go through all the past games and figure out what's going on and try and get the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that was one thing where I was like, I felt like all of the screenshots that we were shown in that flashing sequence,
We should go through those, probably.
I feel like they probably actually give away a lot, but at like a glance at each of them, I was like, what the fuck? These are like the most tangential lines.
I so want to go through and like look at those screenshots.
I swear, I'm probably gonna go back through it and like be kicking myself over what they actually imply.
It's gonna be good.
But I think definitely some of the first ones that popped up before it got like really quick, I was like, what?
Why would you show that? What is the meaning of this? Who even knows, my dude? There were some stakes in there, I believe, and I saw Kraus. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh
Anyhow.
my God.
I don't know. I think episode 5 was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
I have one more thing.
What's the thing?
After we had that flash of images, Battler reached the truth, and he unveiled his golden truth. What the fuck is the golden truth?
What is the golden truth?
You tell me.
God.
The red is absolute, undeniable truth, and then blue is theory crafting, basically. What is golden truth?
Well, it said that red truth was undeniable, and it was it said that the gold truth was the same as the red, but sometimes it was superior, sometimes it was inferior.
Yep, sometimes superior to the red, sometimes inferior.
The immediate thing that it makes me think of then is that the gold truth will represent what actually happened on the island.
You think so?
Because even if Kinzo is dead at the start for all games, does that mean he was dead at on the start on the island?
I don't know.
Whereas the gold truth to me is like,
Yeah.
fuck you, he's dead. Yeah. Because the whole thing is why would it be superior in some circumstances and inferior in others? If you can't use the gold truth to like actually solve the individual game boards, except for things that are like objectively consistent across all of them and actually happen on the island, I can't think of why else it would fit in there.
It's a great question.
I think the only other thing is that it seems to be, even though the red truth doesn't require any evidence or whatever, it still requires evidence for it to be accepted in this court of illusions or whatever, whereas the gold truth
was just immediately accepted, like, sure, gold truth, Shurumia Kinzo is dead.
Which I don't know, I don't
Very
understand.
interesting.
I think that's probably going to be the next focus of my endless rewatching of this.
Yep, definitely. Well, it's the only gold truth that he uses, I believe.
So far.
Like, he's only said one line of it. What a fucking reveal. I will say, in the manga, when Battler unveils his golden longsword and speaks the fucking golden truth, it's just 2 pages of gold. Like, blank, just color. It's fucking beautiful.
That's pretty great.
You should find a picture of it and throw it up on screen, because it's so just... the golden truth is so good! It's OP as fuck, except when it's not.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see where else it gets used, if ever.
Yeah.
I can't wait for us to get through, like, to the very end of the story and there's, like, only 2 or 3 lines of it.
Right.
That'd be so fitting.
What makes you think that?
I mean, because I feel like the red truth is, like...
The truth is definitely a staple of the game.
The red truth is a staple, and it almost feels like the gold truth is more of a vessel to say, just stop worrying about this.
Right. Just move on, you nerds.
Yeah.
He's dead boy.
So, like, I don't know. I'm very interested to see how it plays out. I hope it gets used a bunch. I hope I'm wrong. But I would not be surprised if we get to the end and it's like maybe, 2 or 3 lines that are just like, this was true, this was true, this was true. And then those are kind of like maybe the 3 things that you can stitch on to like build up a reality of Rikenjima theory. I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch. I definitely don't understand it at all.
No, that's fine.
It's just spitballing.
That's fine. That's what theory crafting is for.
Absolutely.
You gotta trust it that's solvable and give it a go, and that's what matters.
Well, there you go.
It was wonderful having you.
Episode 5 done and dusted.
Episode 6 soon, boys.
Oh boy,
Episode 6 when?
I'm thoroughly scared.
You're ready to have your mind blown and all of your theories shattered. I can neither confirm nor deny the shattering of theories or illusions.
I am confirming them.
Oh, okay.
I'm confirming they will be shattered.
Alright, let's go. What color was that in?
That was in black.
Okay.
Thus, you could not see it because the background was also black.
Okay. Good.